That is, to conform us, to be all things to us. And we're right when we sing, we are a child of the King. And these thoughts that are suggested, he has the crown and the robe and mansions and all. How many know that's very real? Yes. But how many know all those statements are what? Potential statements. They're real, they're truth, they're fact. But it's a potential statement. Keep that in mind, because a little later, as you go on with God, God is going to test you. He's going to permit many things to come to test even some of your theological doctrines and ideas and notions and things that have clung to us, been with us so long. Sometimes he has to deal with that. Now, he's not dealing with sin. He's not dealing with any questionable thing. He's dealing with sometimes good things out of order. A good thing out of order can do as much damage as a bad thing. Absolutely. A good thing out of order, out of a divine arrangement, can be as disastrous as a bad thing. And sometimes in our thinking, because perhaps due to a lack of teaching or poor teaching, we start moving along in God, and then God allows certain things to come. Sometimes maybe a terrific defeat that we thought we were completely past. Well, when you're too sure, he knows how to let you down, all right. And so that thing sometimes arrests us. And if we're not careful, we question. We say, well, how can these things be? Well, dear, they just be. There it is. And the stronger your nature, the stronger your nature, how many know the more difficult it is God to deal with you? I do an awful lot of counseling with people, all kinds. I've had to do it for years because God has used me in that field. It isn't my doings. It was very far away from my personal desires to do, but he's seen good to do that. He's given insight and sort of intuitive touch, and sometimes terrible discernment. Why? To help them. And I've always found the soul that is most needy, and you want to help them the most, the soul is its greatest enemy. It's your great, you are you, I am myself, my greatest enemy. I've said how God had prayed that through me, triumphed in me in the spirit. And then it came out in English, and here I was in a terrible distress, crying to God to triumph in me. Well, you know why? Well, Jesus Christ has triumphed in all things. He has triumphed over the devil completely. But has he completely triumphed over the areas, all the areas of my personality? Now that's another question. That's another question. That is the practical unfolding of a judicial truth. Judicially, he has triumphed. Experimentally, he is in the process. In the process now. This is a process of moving over your nature, my kingdom, as he said. He wants to possess his kingdom. The kingdom is within you, is within me. But this kingdom has been usurped, you see, by the powers of the enemy. And he's bringing it back into his possession. Judicially, he has paid the price. Experimentally, he is now, by the power of the Spirit, bringing the possession into realization. That's why he has to deal with us all the time. He's not dealing with you and me because we're sinners. He's dealing with us because we are his people. We're in a process of growth, development. And so here we say, a robe, a crown, oh, rose, yes. Well, that's right. But the possession of that's entirely a different thing. Absolutely, entirely different. The possession of it depends upon what he's been able to accomplish in you and me in the divine process of the intuition, all the direction of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is coming to you and to me to recapture, to possess back, to bring back again to God. I am saved, I am being saved, I am yet to be saved. Can you see that or can't you see that? Yes. Why? Because it's a divine process. Judicially, in the sight of God, I'm saved. I'm seated with Christ in heavenly places. Are you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Now he's speaking judicially. Remember to keep your truth where it belongs. It may be in judicial brackets. And the work of the Holy Spirit today in you and me is to bring us into these experiences in God which are mere crises. The experience itself does not accomplish it. Now please let me repeat it again. You'll be very vexed with me, but it'll show how sanctified you are. Yes, you'll be very vexed with me. People I know, I vex them, preachers especially. They don't want to come near me because I upset their theology. I disturb their little patterns about this big. Yes, it'll get vexed. But that shows how sanctified a person is. That's the practical application of I'm sanctified holy. Try it. Well, I didn't know you meant that. Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. So he comes in now with the Spirit and makes all this crown and the robes and all this business, which is in poetry very, very beautiful. Very beautiful. I've given you that illustration before. The truth has to be personalized to make it yours, not just the acceptance of it. And you get blessed to pieces in the acceptance. I've known people to receive truth and just get blessed and blessed. The truth is so wonderful, so wonderful. Glory to God. That's the truth. It is dear. It surely is yours. You have reached out your hands in faith and shut into your heart, like I read that poem last night. Remember? Out of this book? Yes. But it became the most disastrous thing that I've ever handled. Why? Because in the process, he has to take us all apart, dismantle us, throw out the rubbish, all excess baggage, and just the rudiments, the most essential part of the being. He salvages it, washes it in his precious blood. He cleanses it. He purifies it. He breathes the Holy Spirit, his life into it, in order to bring forth a new creation. In his mind, he sees it perfectly. But in experience, we are only in a process of becoming. So I often say to people who come and are discouraged, I say, cheer up, dear, cheer up. You are only in a divine process of releasing and coming. God sees you finished. That's why we can't pass judgment upon either ourselves or upon people. For we don't know just how far we've come or how anybody else has come. In a studio, an artist who was doing very fine work in sculpture, he worked a while on this piece and that piece, and he had them all in his studio, and he had people coming, to see him, and they say, it's funny, that piece, where are the arms on the thing? Where? And they did nothing but criticize these pieces of work. Well, it annoyed him. He just didn't like it. He knew behind his back that he was being criticized. So he made a great big sign. These pieces are not yet finished. And set it up like that. So when they came, you see, that ended that criticism. How can you pass judgment on a thing when it isn't finished? I don't know half the time who I am. I have the slightest idea. I've lived with myself all these years. I don't know who I am. Why? Because I have never finished with him a discovery of what this thing is. How many think you know just who you are? Sit down, dear. You display your ignorance. No, you don't. He doesn't want us to know. The thrill of life is the discovery and the repossession. The discovery and the repossession. Coming back again. So when we sing this hymn this morning, it's good to cheer us on the way. We whistle in the dark. And he wants it to. Why does he give us the precious promises? Encouragement. It's his words, it's his authority. The promise. Encouragement. It doesn't finish it. It encourages us. Now, we don't know how long we may be in this process. And I'm just foolish enough to believe that in ages to come I shall continue to unfold and move on into God. I expect that. I don't think the act of his coming will accomplish that feat, because it's against his laws, the laws of the spiritual realm. No, that still goes on. He'll gather up whatever potential of spiritual life I have, whatever deposit, whatever he's accomplished in you and in me. He picks that spiritual deposit up and lifts it, elevates it into a new order and in a new age, and projects it on down through the eternal age. Well, then how it behooves us to know what under the sun in heavens he's doing with us here, that we can cooperate intelligently and let him do and accomplish what he wants while we're here. You never can come back and make the choice here. You move under the power of the choice you make here out there. But you can't come from there back here and make the choice all over, make another one. No, 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 no. He gives us periods in which we make our choices. And he takes us for what that's worth, and he starts right there working. But I can't come back and say, oh, I wish I had made that choice. He said, I gave you that privilege in life. But you didn't know what life was all about. I gave you that. Sometimes we let them slip ignorantly. You've known that. You've seen people, haven't you? Yes, when God's been dealing with them, who couldn't discern the meaning of his dealing. They were warped because they were too self-centered and conscious in the thing and couldn't see it. And we'd say, oh, make a right choice. Haven't you ever had that dealing with people? Of course. Well, why? Because his immediate environment has blinded him. And he's only conscious of it as it touches the ego right there. And we'd say, oh, get away from that. This choice is to be projected ages yet to come. Make a good choice now. Yes? Oh, I thought you were asking questions. Let that choice now register in you, and God will take you on the basis of that and work with you. We live continually under the power of merely making a choice. I've said it before here, and you can say it yourself. I am right here this morning, the sum total of 10,000 choices I have made. And they have all registered and released this thing that you're looking at this morning and hearing. I am now the sum total of all those choices, because we are reacting agents. God made us that way. The stimuli is out here, but it pushes against us. We react under it. Give you a choice, you react. All these things register. So don't get the truth, which is purely a judicial statement, don't get that mixed up all the time with living. We're all seated together in heavenly places this morning judicially in the purpose of God, and God sees us and is working with us with that thought. But how many of you know we are not yet up in heaven, seated in heavenly places? We are not. Don't be deceived. Where are we? Down here and half the time stuck in the mud. But does God blame us? No. Now don't get mad at the old creation. It's hard for people to accept themselves or accept life. One of the troubles. I've dealt with some people. I said, I've dealt with you a long time. We've prayed, we've got the baptism of the Spirit, and have a wonderful time. But they come back, they see through a lot of things that you don't always tell about. I said, listen, you have never accepted yourself. Now there's your trouble. You know that, or don't you know that? You have been frightened at what you find, and you don't want to accept it and say, Lord, here it is. Let's look at it together. No, some people won't do that. They camouflage it. But how many, it always remains there for an unearthing and an unmasking. So why not, as soon as there is an indication, say, all right, Lord, what is it? And I've dealt with people, I said, no, you are your greatest enemy. It's not this condition or that condition or your doctrine or this lack of faith. It's not that at all. You have not had a self-revelation enough to know how to adjust yourself to the program of God. Now that takes sometimes quite a long time. How many know it's rather tedious work? Yes, it's very necessary. This morning, I didn't know just exactly what to bring you, but I was thinking of our lesson yesterday of prayer, and it's prayer patterns, and ask and seek and knock and all of that. And while I was thinking of that, I was thinking of this idea of growth and development, and this prayer. This little word kept coming to me, but I have written an article of it in my book. How many of you know my book, Broken Bread? Well, in my book, Broken Bread, you'll find a chapter, a whole chapter given to this prayers of the prodigal son. Well, that got me on a line of thinking and praying, and I thought, well, yes, the prayers of the prodigal. That's very good, but I have spoken on that, and may not be fresh and illuminating to some people, and they have it in the book. Let them read it. But I got my Bible out, and when I was reading in Luke, where the record is of the prodigal son episode, I found that it was in a chapter that had to do with the lost things with which God is concerned. So instead of keeping my thought along merely the channel of the prodigal son, I want to take the chapter as a whole. It's a long chapter, and I want to treat the different things which he mentioned as being lost and found. Lost and found. Lost and found. And in the prodigal son story, that's the only place we will find prayer mentioned, because he deals in the other two stories with objects and conditions which do not permit prayer. But when he dealt with the prodigal son, he deals with something which is responsive to him. And that son prays 2 times. And we'll come to that a little later. But before we do that, I want to look at the other things which were lost and recovered. So, if you want to read along with us, in the 15th chapter of Luke, it's a great big long chapter. It has 32 verses. So we will be through 32 days from now. And you better bring your lunch with you. It's too terrific to do anything with in one message, and I know I'm very foolish to tackle it. But even if I don't go too far in it, will you let us skim over to give you a general outline of my thought. It is real Christian philosophy, and this is the basis for it. I'm a teacher, and I have a right for a basis for my message. And so in this 15th chapter of Luke, you will find how God deals with things which are lost or out of order or out of place. How does he handle them? What are the things which are lost? He says in the word, Jesus came to save that which was lost. Now, don't confine that to a personality. He did come to save people. But his salvation scope is much greater than just the redeeming of some souls and picking them up. As the Adventists and other people get 144,000. Well, a lot of Pentecostal people pretty as bad. They've got about 144,000 too that are circulating around. Don't do that. It is a horrible thing to do. Don't do that. His redemption covers so much more. He came to save that. I asked the Lord, I said, how far does your redemption reach, Lord? He says, it reaches just as far as the effects and power of sin has reached. For my atonement is perfect. And just as far as the wreckage of the enemy has moved, he says, just so far can my redeeming powers move. So that encouraged me. So I thought, this redemption is going to include an awful lot of things besides getting some folks from the earth to heaven. I'm sure of that, but I'm sure that it's greater than that. So when we come to this 15th chapter, we'll read a little in it. Then drew near unto him all the publicans and sinners for to hear him. Now get your audience. Is this something he's talking to disciples? No. Now, when he's talking to disciples, he has entirely different tenor. He has entirely different line. When he talks to the multitudes, he will have a special line. When he talks to these Pharisees and sinners, he's going to have truth for them especially, and reduced in measure and fashion that they can actually receive it and understand it. So he's going to talk to them in pictures. Now, that's very elementary. But how many know with people of that class you have to? He did. To the multitudes, he ministered not unto them without a parable. He ministered to the rest of them with other methods. But when it comes to the general fallen down race of humanity, he's a great teacher, marvelous. His approach will be through the things with which they are familiar. In the best of philosophy, we always have learned that. You reason from the thing that you know to the unknown, for you have to have a basis for the projection of your thought. So you start from the thing you know and push it out here. Now he's going to talk to them about salvation. He's going to talk to them about the interest of God in people. He's going to talk to them all of that. So he brings it down to the basis of a story. Picturesque, with all the trappings, but it will make its appeal to them where they live. He's not going to enter into any sophisticated reasoning process with them. They're not fit for it. They aren't open to it. But when he is alone with his disciples, what will he do? Tell them stories? No. He expounds all things to them. Well, there's a different level. Entirely different level. Now, with these, look, to whom is he speaking? Pharisees and sinners. Well, has he a message for Pharisees and sinners? Absolutely. How will it be couched and presented? In terms, stories, fashion, with which they are most familiar. They live in it every day. So he will take up the most everyday thing that they know, and he says, here's your analogy, here's your picture, here is truth flowing in things that you already know. I will tell you about things you don't know through a process of relation to the thing you do know. And so he talks to these Pharisees and these sinners who have always misunderstood him and passed their judgment because he doesn't function in a line that would please or satisfy them. Now, if he's a great teacher, why doesn't he do this? If he's the Messiah, why doesn't he do that? Now, let me help you. Don't do that with God. Don't do that with the Lord. Don't do that with the Holy Spirit. They are very independent and all very, very efficient. And because they don't move in a pattern that would satisfy my personal approach to the thing, I sit down. Sit down. How many times you've heard me say that? Sit down. Somebody asked me if I originated the sit-down strikes. No, I didn't. It's a phrase I've used for a long time because that's the only way I can express it. When the truth flows through me like that, and many times it's fresh and new to me, I don't originate truth. I discover it. I don't make it up. I find it. And as I do, I'm not accountable for it. I say, this isn't mine. If you don't like it, don't talk to me. Go to the man that wrote it. Don't say, well, Brother Follette, don't Follette me anymore. Sit down. How do you get me? Yes, sit down. You're trying to get to the thing from the wrong angle, from an entirely wrong angle. Many times they've come to me and I said, don't come to me about it. This is mine. I didn't make this truth up. I have anything to do with it. I discover it. And I find it's quite beyond me. It's quite beyond anything I could think. I have accepted it, and it's wrought a miracle in my life. And I feel if you're hungry, I will give you the truth, but I won't give you a lot of religion. I don't like religion. The world's cursed with it. We go to the foreign fields and have been around the world in all these foreign countries. We never go there to give the people religion. How many know they're cursed with it? They got too much. They need the religious instinct and urge which is given of God, cleansed and adjusted. That's all. It's already in there. You don't implant it. And so when I say sit down, I mean don't tamper with this now. Don't think about it. Sit down and receive it. It'll never come to you by by explaining it in any way. You can't. You can't. It will just come to you. Now receive it. So here are these Pharisees. How will he talk to them about these deepest things that God has come to redeem and bring redemption? He will do it through a story. Well, what will he use? The things with which they are most familiar, they handle every day. And it will be a gentle rebuke. How many know the Lord has a lovely, clever way of doing things? I mean, sweetly. When he wants to give you a good punk, he'll do it sweetly. You know, just, hello, punk! You just say, yes, sir. Have you ever had that, or haven't you? Yes. Well, that's the way we were made, and we demand what we get. Now, you know, every child that gets punished, he demands it. He squeaks around till he gets it. You've seen children do that, just itching to get thrashed. Now, mother say that young one's just itching for a thrashing. And they do, and they're provoking. What made that? Because God got mad at them. And the mommy got mad and she just licked the young one. No. You want to love the young one. But how many know the young one provoked it? He provoked it. He did. We're like that. Half the things that people have, I said, why did you do that for? Well, God, if I were God, I wouldn't do that. Have you ever heard that? How can God do that and be a God of love? Easily. Or you don't know him. No, I have found in my own experience, I have demanded. The thing called Follette has demanded every bit of discipline God has ever given me. I know it now. He didn't discipline me for the fun of it. He disciplined me because my nature called for it. I've often said I wouldn't wish some of the things he's had to do to me on a yellow dog, but I was the dog that got it. Do you get that, or don't you get that? Certainly, because he's had to train us. Now, do you remember these pious Pharisees? They're so pious. In a chapter just before this, I think it is, in Luke, they were quarreling with him because he ate with sinners, did things like that, and he healed somebody on the Sabbath day. Wasn't that terrifying? Well, now, to what was it terrifying? To the real truth? No. It was terrifying to a tradition which they had held. God will never disturb truth in you. He will disturb traditions and notions and ideas which have no real ground in his work, but you have held them and hold them because you're afraid to release them and take the truth. So you hold the thing a little tighter, and it comes. You know that, or don't you know that? That's the way people are made. You can't get that on the tape, dear. Sure can't do that. Well, that's the way they're made. Now these miserable Pharisees had criticized him. They'd been so critical because he did things on the Sabbath. Remember? Yeah, didn't like it. So the very first shot out of the gun, he's going to start in with them. He's going to talk to them a little bit something that he doesn't pronounce it too significantly, but it's there. And he spake this parable unto them, saying, What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he lose one of them, doth he not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after that which is lost until he find it? Let's stop just for there. How many of you see he's got them already by the neck? Or can't you see that? Where are their senses of value? Their senses of value rests in material things. Sheep, money, tents, flocks. That's their sense of value, resting in mundane material things. And he says, now that's, he says to them, where you live, you are sheep conscious. You are wealth conscious through the sheep. Now, if you lose one of them, you would automatically leave everything to go and get it to restore it, wouldn't you? Yes. Well, he says, in other words, Here is a sinner. Here is your own soul that is also lost out here somewhere. Isn't the shepherd justified in leaving everything for the time and going out and finding it? Of course. We'll find this woman, she's justified in searching every place under the sun for the coin. It's good teaching. So he says, now get your sense of values right. If your sense of value rests yet in material things, you're very feeble. Very feeble. For real life consisteth not in the abundance of things possessed. So you can well hook that verse right in with this bit of teaching. The abundance is not that. It's an evasive, elusive thing called life. We have it, we hold it, we live it. Who is able to do very much with it? He says that's the thing that you must count as valuable. So he says to them, there was a man had all these sheep, and when one is gone, he still rests down here. Now he's going to find it. So he goes out, and what does he do? Having 100 sheep, he goes out after the lost. How long? Until. Well, how long is until? It's a definite time. No. I ask the Lord about that because he uses that same word again in the New Testament. How the Holy Spirit will work with us until we come into the fullness of the thing God is after. Yes, it does. It says so in one of the epistles. Until we all come into the completion of the new order. I said, how long is until? Well, until is just as long as we compel God to work with us. You know, you determine your own until. Yes, we do. The until he can accomplish it is determined by you and by me. We determine it. So it's not a set time. It's as long as you either move with God or retard it. So I was settled with it. I asked him one time, I said, Lord, how is until? Well, I wrote an article on it for one of the Canadian papers. How long is until? Until we all come to the fullness of the stature of Christ. Do you remember it? Well, I heard that. Now, wait a minute. You're getting your judicial truth all mixed in here. No, he works with them until experimentally it comes into the thing which he judicially says is already there. How many know we're all complete in Christ this morning? Let's all get blessed. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Everybody get blessed. We're all complete in Christ. Isn't that right? How many know we're not yet complete in Christ? No, we're not. We're in a process of becoming. And that's what he said. Until we all come to the fullness. Come to it. It is, but we're coming to it. It is, but we're coming to it. Now always remember that, because if you don't, you're going to be stumbled in your thinking and in your life. You will always have a difficulty there with Lord because you don't look at the truth. Learn to do that. These strange artificial bits of teaching that have crept in, they're disastrous. They're not in the Word. They're in our traditional mood. And you mustn't do that. Tear you all to pieces to throw it out. But I'd rather do that. I would rather do that. That's why when, as I said in the illustration the other night, when truth is brought to us again, we don't face and meet all the full revelation of truth every minute. We can't receive it. We have to be conditioned for it. The revelation is there and it's complete. It's complete and perfect. He doesn't add anything more to the revelation. How many know the revelation is already presented? It's given. There it is, the lovely revelation of God's heart to man. A revelation of our salvation, the revelation of his plan, the revelation of his purposes. All of that, that is the divine, marvelous revelation. Now we approach that revelation. We can only receive and have wrought out in us as much as this little capacity can take of it. And so we come into the presence of that revelation, and there's a deposit in our whole being, and we go away, and God wants that to be wrought out in us, that which is truth may become life. That which is light may become life. Do you get that or can't you get that? It's light, but it must be made life. It is light. Don't leave it light, make it life. Now that's the ministry of the Holy Spirit. Now we go again in the presence of the truth. And if we're honest and open and sensitive, how many know God will allow some fresh little inkling of that to move over our spirit? Now, if you're frightened and afraid of truth, you will close yourself in because you have a little tradition that goes with that. And you go back. Think of the people who have walked for months and years under an impact of truth who have not yet been released or set free. They have not been released or set free. I asked the Lord about that, and he said this. He says it's like the wheat and the tares. In the wheat and the tare story, you know, the tares are exactly like wheat. Only almost an expert farmer can detect it. And it'll grow way up as big as this, and you cannot tell the wheat from the tares, and therefore it's a very dangerous thing to try to separate them, because you can't do that. So he says it's like that. The wheat and the tares that grow up together. That's like a tradition that grows up with your deposit of truth. And just as soon as God gives us truth, how many know there will be some kind of a traditional interpretation or a traditional thing that will go right up with it? Unless you're almost an expert in the thing, you'll never detect it. What does he say? Let the wheat and tares grow for the time being, because you can't make the differentiation, but someone can. We all say Merry Christmas. Let everybody say Merry Christmas. Come on. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Now let's all come back again. How many ever noticed something going on, or haven't you noticed anything? Oh dear. I wish I didn't know anything. I wish I didn't know anything. How many will listen, please? What am I talking about? Wheat and tares. Truth and a tradition. The tradition is not discerned easily. It is like the tare, and it grows with it. Grows up. Now, when a fresh new impact of truth, a new impact of truth comes to you, what will be disturbed? Your tradition will be disturbed, but not the truth that you already have deposited. A real truth that's genuine in you will never be disturbed, but your shadowy traditional things that have come with it. How many know that's the thing that always gets disturbed? I asked the Lord about it, and he showed it to me. He said, impact of truth will never disturb or dislodge truth which I have already established in that heart. It will reinforce it. Yes, it will. It will reinforce it. But if there be shadowy misunderstandings, wrong concept, not sin, remaining, truth will always get right there. Why? Because, as I told you the other day, the blood of Jesus deals with our sin questions. Anything relative to sin in life is dealt with through the precious blood of Jesus Christ. But error, tradition, all of those subtle things, that is dealt with by truth. By truth. Not the blood, by truth. That's why Jesus said to them, when he had taught so long with those disciples and gave them a most terrific corrective message, He says, now are ye clean through my precious blood? No. Now are ye clean through my word, my truth, which I've poured upon you. How many can see that or can just see that? And the lovely truth cleansed them. It wasn't that the blood cleansing them from sin. They were all saved, sanctified, holy, kept in rejoicing, had the gifts and 6 trances. How many of you can have that and be clean off? Well, you have to have an awful build-up with some folks, because if you lived with me, you'd see them know. I say, hurry up now, get all of that done. Get saved and sanctified and baptized and gifted and 3 visions and 2 translations and saved 62,000 people. Now sit down and let me help you. Amen. How many can see that or can't you? I can't help people who are still in that funny kind of a procedure. That's like this truth business. He's not dealing with wrong, offensive, terrible things. He's dealing with subtle, strange things which resemble. That's more difficult to deal with than the man that has a cigarette habit. And I have preachers and teachers and workers come to me all the time. I have quite a clientele because God has given me a ministry in that. I deal with them from every level. I have some of the finest scholars. I've dealt with the professors. I've dealt with the nobility in England. He calls me to it. It isn't mine. They said, well, where'd you get? I said, I don't know. Lady and Lords of the name in England invited me. Why? Will you come and pray with us? Will you pray with me? And lady, so I said, certainly. Well, why can't you pray with the nobility as well as the sinner? Why not? Truth is truth. They're just as human. The need is just as real in one as in another. All you can do is to take the truth and wash them. So Jesus said, now are ye clean through the word, the truth, which I have given you. In what? Corrective teaching, not creative. Corrective. Now come back to this. How many can see him slyly handing them something? Can you see them? Can't you see him slyly, politely handing them something? They had just criticized him about the Sabbath. And then he says in another place, in the same story, in the gospel, another story about the sheep and the ox. He says, your evaluation is resting in ox and sheep. He said, if your ox fall in the ditch on Sunday, the Sabbath, how many see? You can pull a dumb ox out of the ditch on Sabbath, and it's all right. But you can't let me relieve a person of a terrifying difficulty. That's all wrong. How many see what crazy standard religion can make? Religion makes it. He doesn't make it. Religion makes it. And it was wrong. It was wrong for him to do good on the Sabbath and deliver a soul. But it wasn't wrong for them to go and pull the old ox out. Why? Because the ox is where they live. They're in ox consciousness, you see, and that's their wealth. Well, isn't he a good teacher? I think he's just wonderful how he can handle them so gracefully, you know. So now, we go along with this. The until is quite a long, difficult period. With this, I want you to read, you can take the scriptures down, then do your reading at home. John 10:14, and John 21:15, and Isaiah 53:6. Those are relative scriptures that enlarges the thing over the thought of personality in one sheep to the whole question of redemption, that all mankind, all of us have gone astray like the sheep. It's a picture for all mankind. All have gone astray like sheep. And then all have to come in under the redemption. Here it is single, you see, a single sheep that's gone. But you see it's representative, or don't you? Yes, it's representative. The salvation, which is the finding of this one sheep, is exactly true of all humanity. All humanity. We have all gone astray just as this one sheep did. Well, read the other scriptures in the light of that. Now, I can't go on with that because I want to get to this coin business. I say unto you that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repenteth, more than over 99 just persons which need no repentance. Now he's going to put it on another level. Either what woman having 10 pieces of silver, if she lose one piece, doth not light a candle, and sweep the house, and seek diligently till she find it? And when she hath found it, she calls her friends and her neighbors together, saying, Rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which I had lost. Likewise, likewise, I say unto you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner that repenteth. Now, when we come to this, you'll have to get something of an oriental picture of the thing. This woman has lost a coin. How many pieces does she have? 10 pieces. Now, the picture is usually given in the Orient to know the Oriental people use these things as decoration for them. And the married woman, if she's married, usually has here the little golden spangles as a sign, a symbol of her marriage. That's her symbol. And they're like 5 and 5 and make a pretty little decoration. How many know God is an artist? Do you believe it? I do too. Do you believe he loves beautiful things? I do too. Do you think he condemns them? No, he makes them. He makes them. And here she is with this, it is a custom. It's the way they live. The way they live. And now she's lost one. And my, what a time she's going to have to find it. She doesn't want the idea of her marital relations upset because she is out of order. How many can catch a little glimpse of something back in there? How many know he tells us so, that we are all out of order in that sense? He wants to make his bride one and call her home in our perfect love in him. Not a shadow with one piece gone. He wants it all. Now she knows that. So she starts in hunting. How many of you see the word seek coming in? Do you get it? Yesterday's lesson? Seek and ye shall find. Not ask and you'll find it. She didn't stand in the middle of the floor and say, now Lord, you know everything, and you know where that coin is, and I just take it of you now that you will direct me right to it and give it to me. Oh, no. You got to seek, dear. There are a lot of things you'll never get from God by asking them. There are plenty you will get, but they're just untold things that only come by a seeking process. The heart has to go through all the difficulty of getting on the floor and on your knees and getting up and going through that's your difficulty. That's exercising your faith. Do you get your faith exercised? Yes, and all of that it's a little picture of the exercise of your faith to find your coin. So she's decorated. Some people get all mixed up with that, thinking that she had gold on her and she's lost some of it. Don't get mixed up now with that terrifying passage in Peter of wearing some gold on you. I think that's the funniest kind of business anyway, and none of them know what you're talking about. You know, you've been to India, and some have been over in India. How many remember in India the wealth of material that they will wear? Now that's their custom. Their custom is to display their wealth. I've seen them in India with several hundreds and sometimes $1,000 worth of their wealth hanging over them in great, like a breastplate almost. I know some of them, afraid that they will be snatched from them, go to the goldsmith and they are melted. The chain is melted that you can't get it off of them. No thief could get it. They have cut her head off to get it. I've seen them. They have shown to me. Here are some. Well, now what is that? It's a vulgar display of your wealth. You get me? It's a vulgar display, earth display of your wealth to show. So say this maiden, if she's not married, she's saying, "Would you like to marry me?" Yes, the dowry she would see. And Paul said, don't act like a heathen with the display of your wealth in gold. Let your adornment be that of the Spirit. He will make it beautiful. Well, now some can't do that, and they can hardly wear gold in their teeth. Well, it's really funny. It's really absurd. So I'm always sorry for him. He's not talking about your dress looking respectable or artistic or refined. No, he does that all the time. How many know, I'm going to get on women's clothes now for 5 minutes. How many know that much of that is the completion of your whole wardrobe? Absolutely. It's like buttons. I won't wear any buttons because that's different from the cloth I have. But the buttons are a part of your makeup. It's a part of the thing. Well, hooks nice. How many know some do that? I've been with people who wouldn't wear buttons on their clothes for anything in the world. They wear hooks and eyes. They're holy. Well, you see what absurd lengths that we can be pushed to, just absurd lengths, and God not interested in it at all. But we make up our little traditional funny patterns, and then we gauge everybody by it. But sometimes it takes the Lord to upset us. I remember while I was in Rochester, and we had a testimony meeting in that little room there where we used to have the meeting, and a dear saint, she was plain as a cat's tail. She combed her hair so tight, they almost pulled her hair out. It was so tight. She wouldn't let even one curl be waved at all. She was just holier than holy. And she just looked terrific, you know. And she got up and gave a testimony. She petrified me. And she said, she was praying and weeping and praying. And said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Brother Follette." Oh, so what am I in this mess for? What has she done now? Oh, she said, "The Lord has been dealing with me." Oh, she was having a terrible time and weeping. Well, it seemed that she was holy and she couldn't see gold in any way. And somebody, one of the students, had given me a pair of gold cufflinks. I couldn't help that. And speaking, my cuff had come out and put my hand up, and the dear woman saw that cuff button and backslid instantly. She just, way she went. Well, how many know that an experience in God that hooks on a cufflink better get loose? Better. She had seen that gold cuff button. I didn't even know that it showed at all. She had been stumbled for months and months and months, and she couldn't get over this cuff button. She was trying to get to God, but how many see is how the devil can use just such a fool thing as that? That then she began, in her piety, to judge everybody else because they didn't wear hooks and eyes. Well, she went through the pit. I didn't know anything about it. She got up in the meeting and confessed it and asked my pardon. Oh, did I ever feel humiliated? Well, I thought, goodness sake, child, I wouldn't wear them at all if I thought you were going to hell over my cuff buttons. So, in order not to stumble when I was going to a camp meeting, I went to 10-cent store and bought 2 little bone cuff buttons. And I thought, well, I don't want to send anyone else to the pit. Now, that woman's got all upset because I got those. I had better wear these bone. Well, the Lord just rebuked me. He said, now you stop your foolishness. And I still have as a souvenir those 2 cuff buttons. And when I dust in my box of stuff, I keep taking them out and look at them. I think, oh, what a mystery. But how many of you can see how silly such a contraption would be? That would be just nonsense. Here they are with all that. It says, don't be displaying anything like that. Now, so she searches and searches till she finds the coin. Now, what is the reaction? Exactly the same as with the sheep. The reaction was intense joy and victory. So she says, come on in, all my friends. Let's have a good time. I found my spangle, and no one will think anything but what everything is perfectly straight, and I won't have the idea of something questionable going on at all. Like everything is fine. And they rejoiced with her. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Now, is this the end of the story? No, he's going to push it on to another level. First, we've had the sheep. Now we've had the coin. Now he's going to deal with it personally as a personality. So he takes a hold of the story of the prodigal son, which we all know. We know it so well. But there's some things I want you to see in the story that usually they're skipped over, or not understanding the thing as it should be read, you get different pictures. And he said, a certain man had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, do you see it's the younger one? Yeah. How many kids see something in there? How many of the older one has had all the experiences already and he's quite settled? But the younger one, he says, well, if you want to live on that dog trot life, all right. I'm not made that way. I want to know something more. I kind of like this boy, to tell the truth. I don't love his sins, but I love his temperament. I really do. I appreciate him. I understand him. This other pious fellow, he's too smug. He's too tight. I can't bear religious people. I love spiritual people, though. But religious people drive me just... I can't take them only about so long and say, Lord, let's get out of here. And I go. But spiritual people, how you know, then I can take up with them and I have beautiful fellowship. So now we're dealing with this, which is a very, very normal picture. It is the younger of the 2. The older one has been pampered and had everything that he could. The family spoiled him anyway. And so here he is, all set, cut and dried. He's just functioning. Very nice boy. And the younger one, poor dear boy, he hasn't learned anything yet. He's going to learn, and I got patience with him too. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of the goods that falls to me. Has he a right to do that? Yes. Yes. He's on safe grounds and right grounds. It is right that if he wants his share, to have it. There's nothing wrong about it. So he says, Father, give me the portion, the share that belongs to me. And the father says, all right. So he divides it with him, which so far is perfectly normal and good. And he divided them his living. Do you get it? It's living. The question that God has with people is the question of their life, what they're doing with it, not their goods. And not many days, it never does take long, and not many days after the younger gathered all together, and he got his car out and filled the tank, and he took a long journey to a far country. Do you see how he... Do you get this at all? Do you see this escape that he's fixing up? He's fed up with his home life. It's entirely too tame. If my big brother wants to do this, all right, but not for me. That's what he's saying. So he's going to have a little fling, and he's going to see what it's all about. And of course, the father says, all right, now this is yours. God will let you have your way if you want it. Yes. So if you want to go to hell, we'll go to hell. We determine our destiny like that. God would have everyone saved, but some won't be. It's a setness in their spirit. So it's only a little while, and he takes his journey into a far country. Usually it is far, because some can't learn the first month or 2 and the first few miles. They have to go far. That is, they take the full extent of the fling. So he goes to a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. Now, first thing is to waste his substance. And when he has spent all, 2, arose a mighty famine, 3, that's condition. He began to be in want, 4, he's beginning to feel the pressure. And went and joined himself to the citizens, 5, this is his reaction, what he will do. And he's so hungry that he would even eaten the food that they gave to the pigs, which is the 6th. And you go on down to the 7th, and when he came to himself, what a process. What a process. Every step that he takes has its analogy in the departure of a soul from God. Every one. They are steps that every soul will take in his departure when he leaves God. So he goes on until finally he comes to himself. As I said in my article, he had come to everything else in his venture. He had come to wealth, and he'd spent it. To his health, and he'd spent it. He came to every feature that was right and good, but he didn't know how to handle them. He abused every bit of it. He came. What was the last thing he came to?
Himself.
How do you know most people don't come to themselves till the extremity? No, they don't. If anybody thinks you know who you are, be quiet. Well, that's hard, but that's the truth. Many have not yet come to themselves. I'm always amazed. 2 things that always amaze me. People who feel they have come to themselves when they're hardly through adolescence. And others about their cross. Take up your cross. God doesn't say that to a beginner. No, he doesn't. They haven't any strength with which to pick up a cross if they wanted to. No. He waits and he waits. Then they say, have I found my cross? Oh dear, you will know. No one can help you with that. You will know. It's like the girl, young girl, she was a teenager, and she was having all these parties in school, and a beau here, and another beau there, and she was having a big time. She liked this one, she liked Freddie, but she was just having time, and she liked them. She went to her grandmother and says, Grandmother, do you think I'm in love? Oh, tut-tut, says, if you really get in love, you don't need anyone to tell you. How do you know that was good sound sense? You don't need anybody to tell you. How do you know they don't want to be told? That's like this. When he came to himself, he had come to all these other things and treated them so lightly, with no intelligence at all, until at last God said, well, dear, what you need is a revelation, just a little one, of who you are. And when he came to himself, dear Lord, he says, is that like it? I am. Don't tell anyone, will you, Lord? No. How do you know he never tells on you? No. Well, he says, now that's what you are. I can't do a thing with it. Oh, Lord. No. It'll have to be wrecked, dear. Oh. I thought there was a kick in this religion anyway. Oh, there's no kick. There's a glory in it. And so when he came to himself, he begins to pass a little judgment. And he sees the life that he has in contrast with even that which he had, humdrum as it is, with his father. Very prosaic. It didn't have the thrill. Well, he said, even that's better than this. Even the servants in my father's house, who don't know anything about what I know, to tell the truth, are better off than I am. I've got out here, now look what I know, and I don't know anything. I've seen everything, and I don't know it. I think it would be better if I even went back and didn't start on this business at all. I'd probably be safer. That would be better. So I'll go back. And I will say, this is what his prayer was going to be, I will say, oh, Father, I have sinned, and so on. I'm not worthy to be called thy son. Very good and repentant. That's very good. But do you remember when he did come back, he never prayed the prayer through? Or did you ever notice it? He didn't finish his prayer at all. He said, when I go, I will pray this. Oh, Father, I have sinned, and so on. But when he really got there, he only got just the first 2 little things. I'm not worthy to be called thy son. Now, what had he prayed? In the beginning, he says, I'm going to take the place of a servant. And I will say to my Father, if I get this thing all straightened out, I'll be willing even to be a servant if I can only get back to where I really belong with you. I would be willing to be just a servant and not have any show off at all. Just a hidden servant. And I'll say to him, Father, I have sinned and I'm not worthy, and I will be willing to be a servant for you. Did he ever really pray it? No. No. Now watch it. He only prays the first part of it. Let's follow it down. This is what he's going to do. And he fain would have filled his belly with the husk, and the swine did eat, and no man gave him. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise, good intention, and go to my father, splendid, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. This is, how do you see the purging going on inside with his conviction? Make me one of thy hired servants. And he rose and came to his father. And now 21, and the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven, and in thy sight am not worthy to be called thy son. Does he go on and say, let me be a servant? No, that's all knocked out of him. He struck the real thing. I have sinned against heaven. How many all sins against God first? And when he saw that, he said, oh, I've sinned against heaven. And truly, I'm not even worthy to be called a son. He doesn't say, make me a servant. No. What is it? Oh, the Father says, that's plenty. That's enough. Bring the robe and the ring and the things. Kill the fatted calf, and let us make merry and rejoice that this poor, deluded, stupid, dumb, blind boy has got home again. He didn't scold him, and the father said, there, you had plenty? No. How do you know that's nature? That's nature. Nature can't understand or see a thing. But not with God. And so the Father says, bring all these things. Bring forth the best robe. Put it on him. Put a ring on his hand. Shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, and is alive. Do you see something I've been telling you? Dead, alive, how do you get it? Do you get it? Dead, alive. And that's his teaching. Most teaching today in evangelism, their truth always vibrates between heaven and hell. You watch the popular evangelism of this day, and how many of you know almost the whole teaching is always between these two extremes of a positive and negative issue, heaven and hell. Do this and go to heaven. Do this and escape hell. Jesus doesn't teach that way. He believes heaven and hell, but he always teaches between these two issues, life and death. This son who was bound for hell has turned around and is now going to heaven. Is that it? No, you spoiled it. That's tradition. Let it alone. Well, of course it is. That's a tradition. He said he was dead, but is now coming into life. And that's Jesus' teaching. I have come to give you life. Not I've come to save you out of hell. He'll save us out of hell. If you have life, how do you know you'll get out of hell? Was hell the issue? No. Heaven the issue? No. The issue is life and death. Those two extremely opposing forces, diametrically opposed, and Jesus teaches all the time between them. He says you are either dead or alive. Now, if you're dead, it doesn't matter all the poor, bad things you're doing, you're dead. Don't fuss around with that stoic cat. He says you're dead. Well, I didn't mean to steal when I think I swore once or chewed gum or did something terrible. He's not talking about those things. How many know that's the popular method? Become conscious of all the little tittle-tattle issues. Yeah, Jesus never did that. He says here there are two issues. You are either dead or alive. And since you are dead, I have come to give you life. The prodigal son, same story. This my son, who was heading toward hell, has been rescued and is now pointing toward the throne. Oh, how many know that's sing book theology and a lot of other funny stuff that people have? How many of you would get blessed to death under it? How many of you? Yes. I've seen people get blessed to death under a lot of funny stuff that had no more sense to it than, well, not at all. But emotionally they can be stirred. I want to be an angel, and with the angels stand, a crown upon my forehead and a palm within my... You'll never be angels. Well, then why get blessed to death over it? Oh, I don't know, I feel better toward God. Well, all right. Well, that's the way people are. How many know I'm quite an iconoclast? Isn't that true? Well, that's needed. I mean, a lot of places need just this to go in, tear it all upside down, get them straightened out and say, come on, let's go to God. And stop your fussing around with a lot of nonsense. Religiosity, without any real truth back of it. And so here he says, this son. Now I want to help you with some words. Because if you don't get these words straightened out, you're going to get a funny picture. And I'll give you the words. Well, I'll move it a little bit farther till we get this other brother talking, and then we'll get his words. 27, and he said unto him, thy brother is come. This is, the servant was out, and this other brother was out in the field. Now get this too. Now remember, this other brother is out in the field, all around the premises somewhere, maybe down on another part of the place. He has not yet seen his brother. This older brother has not yet seen his younger brother. He is out in the field, way off down here. But he hears this celebration going on, and when he comes, the servant says, thy brother, who was lost and gone, has been found in his home, and we're having a celebration. And the older brother was so rejoiced about it. He was so delighted. He's a pious man, and he prayed through on this question. And he was very concerned about his younger brother, who was very naughty and did very bad things. And he carried him before the throne of grace very often. And now, when he sees his prayers have been answered, and the son has come home, I can't stand this older brother very long. Really, I can't. I don't like him. He's too smug. I wish he'd sneeze or do something wicked. I mean, to wake him up. He's never been wakened yet. He's artificial. He's just artificial. But listen, I want you to hear him talk. And he said unto him, thy brother is come, and thy father has killed the fatted calf, and so on. And he was angry. Oh, tut now, you're going to lose your sanctification, brother. He was angry. How many know he'll lose the second blessing as sure as you live? He's getting angry. He's just going to lose out. And he was angry and would not go in. Oh, stubborn thing. Would not go in. Therefore came the father out. Make the poor old father come out. How many know God always does? Mm-hmm. What a God we have. Mm-mm. The father came out and entreated him. And he answered and said, this pious, lovely, holy man says to his father, kind of sassy to him, lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time. I never had the car out later than 10 o'clock. And yet thou hast never given me even a kid, that I might make merry with my friends.
But as soon as this thy son, not my little brother, but this is your son, old man. As soon as your son, oh dear, isn't he a miserable thing? But as soon as this thy son has come, which has devoured his living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf.
Now here, whoever told him that he had lived with the harlots? How do you know? The story doesn't say that. The story does not say that. The story merely says he had wasted his substance in riotous living. How many can see something real terrible coming up? How did he get the idea that he had done that? How do you know it's a reflection of the inner man himself? If I had a fling like that, that was automatically what I would have done. Therefore, I think it's in the life of the other. Is that good psychology? I think so. I'm terrible on analysis. I don't let these people go by me 5 minutes. I say, come here. Because I want to know about it. Is it wrong to analyze this thing? No. Because the Lord told me to. And so he told me to get my Greek Testament out. I read it in the Greek. Get your Greek Testament out and get these words and get them straightened out. Well, I read this version. We'll read another one. In my Bible study, I use continually at least 7 translations. I can't get down to business with just one version as a teacher. I might as one who is being taught as a layman, but I'm not that. I'm in another position. And as my teaching, I use at least 7 translations all the time. And so God made me get in here with the Greek Testament and lexicon and find out what under the heavens they did say and what he didn't say. The story does not say that he lived with harlots. The story doesn't say that at all. How many know the pictures generally pictured are all pictured with just that? Because the artist doesn't know the story. The artist doesn't know the story. He paints traditionally. Yes, they do. So many of our pictures today are purely traditional pictures. The pictures we have of Jesus in his daily walk, half of them are purely traditional and not at all as it was with Jesus. I'm death on it. I don't think it's right to teach the child, the little child, and give him a picture of Jesus walking along with a white dress on and a lovely halo about his head doing good. He never did that. He never did that. Even his own family did not yet recognize his identity as the Son of God. They did not. Luke plainly says the people supposed him to be the son of Joseph, period. And their interpretation of him was continually that he was merely the son of Joseph as a fine rabbi teaching and preaching. But his identification as the Son of God coming, that was not revealed. It wasn't revealed to the end of his life when he called the testimony out of Peter. That's the first you get the testimony. And he wanted it, so he says, who do people think I am? Well, it's taken 3 years for it to dawn on him that he's more than merely a prophet. He says, some think you're a prophet, but we're a little closer. We recognize you are a prophet, but we recognize you are a Messiah. A prophet who is really the Messiah. Anything else? Well, poor old blundering Peter gets up. And his blinders had been so loose that before I knew it, he was looking at him in reality, not through tradition. He was looking at Jesus in reality. And he says, thou art the Son of the living God. Not only prophet, Messiah, but thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. What did Jesus say immediately? Flesh and blood never told you that. It couldn't. He couldn't get it at the temple. He couldn't get it through the scribes. He couldn't get it through the writings. He couldn't by himself. Not at all. Because their tradition wouldn't let them. Their miserable tradition wouldn't let them. And they had been blinded by that all this time. And finally, these blinders had fallen off of Peter. Because as he's listened to Jesus teach and teach and teach, he said, very well, the rest can believe what they want to. Every little while, one blinder goes down and I see him something else. Do you see it? Yes. But the rest of them all had these blinders on, interpreting him under the power of their blinders. If he is the real Messiah, he will function this way and this way, but not anything else. Peter says, I believe something different. He says, the other day he said something, and one of my blinders slipped, and I saw something. But of course I didn't dare to believe it, because tradition wouldn't allow me to. And a little while back, he was teaching and preaching, and one of my blinders got loose, and I saw something else in him that was amazing, most arresting. I've carried it in my heart. I didn't dare to say to the rest of them, do you think? Because I thought they were thinking anyway. But he says, my blinders have fallen off, and I see who he is. The Christ, the Son of the living God. Indeed a Messiah, but a Messiah who is the Christ, the Son of the living God. Now, how many see a lot of tradition had to go sweeping out? Just swept those traditional things all out, and there they stood. Now, these traditions have come down into our Christian period until when we present Christ in Sunday schools and charts and pictures, we have him so artificially arranged and doing such strange things. He never looked like these pictures that we have at all. If he had, how many know they would have made a distinction? But they didn't make a distinction. They thought he was just the son of Joseph. Then why did it persist? Now, by making him appear as this marvelous creature with the white robes and the halo and everything, that makes it difficult for young people, children, or anyone to wonder how in the world they could have killed such a wonderful creature as that. Do you see it, or don't you see that? They could say, well, that was Jesus. How could they kill him? They didn't know he was Jesus. No, not till the end of his journey was his real identity made known. They thought he was just this son of Joseph, a rabbi that taught and preached and did beautiful things. Now, get your traditions out of the way. If you ever hope to walk on with God, your traditions just have to go down, that's all. It isn't pleasant, it's very difficult. I've known people tenaciously hold on certain traditions and blur their whole vision because of it. You can't do that. You just let that go. Breathe and come out. So, he says he's wasted his life with these harlots. Well, I want to say, who told him that? Have you ever stopped to wonder? Who told him that? Nobody. He has not seen his brother. How many of you are kind of finding something you never noticed before? You're finding out some things you never noticed? Well, keep reading, keep going with me, you'll find a lot of things you didn't know before. Because I keep finding them too, and I didn't know it before. Till I get in and study, and the Lord says, now you get these words straightened out. Get these words straightened out, just don't read it. And it came to pass for featherbed. Oh dear. How many get it, or don't you see that? You can't do that way. You mustn't do that way. It was this elder brother who cooked up this harlot business. Even when Jesus is teaching, Jesus didn't say that. It was the younger brother, and I think that was purely a reflection of his inner life. Just a reflection. So, we'll come out a little bit more. And as soon as this thy son comes out, then you can have everything. And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother who was dead is alive again, was lost and is found. Now let me get to these words, and I want you to get them. We'll go back to this question of what the Father gave to him. It says he gave him his living. This is a picture of the the privilege and great responsibility of being life conscious. If we have life in him and are conscious, how many know we are made immediately most responsible? Yes. We are made responsible the moment that in our desire to know reality, God says, here is life. I can redeem you and I can give you life with all its potential openings for you. How many know you at once become responsible? Yes, we do. Absolutely. We are responsible. You ask for it. Now he says, I will give it. And he gave him life. Well, then it says, and he went and spent his substance in riotous living, it says here. Riotous living. Well, we have a Revelations thing that works, so you can't help it, so go on, twist it, or get this, and not be looking, because you may not be able to see somebody change these things again. That's all right, dear. Do the best you can with it. It made me think of sometimes when I'm teaching, someone comes in with a baby, and if you ever noticed, if we have long seats like this is the aisle, that mother, God bless her, she's dumb as a hop toad, she brings her little darling, and instead of sitting near the seat, she always goes straddling over at least 6 people and sits there. Now watch them. I've done it for 50 years. Now she doesn't know she's doing that. So it's in there about 10 minutes. So well, I don't blame the baby. I'd slap the mother. If I'd been the baby, I'd give the mother a good swat, because she should have it. No, so the mother gets up, steps over this one's feet, then she drops a singing book, then she gets over this one. I've seen that over and over. Then if she goes out, everybody in the congregation does this. And I want to say, look good, you'll never see a baby again. But if I did that, they would shoot me. How will you bear with me? Am I awful? I know I'm terrible. Good Lord loves me. He does. He loves me. But I wish I didn't see anything. I just stand, praise Jesus. And they upset the whole meeting. Glory. Glory to grandmother. Oh, awful, horrible, horrible. And you watch the next time. She goes down the aisle, you know, and everybody looks at it. I always want to say, get a good look, dear. You'll never see a baby again. But you know, that would be very bad for a preacher to do, so I just think, praise the Lord. Oh, I can tell you a worse one than that, but you get laughing. I don't want you to laugh. I just want you to see through things. Oh, one was terrible. It was... Oh, dear. Oh, I won't tell you. It's a little relic. It's actually and won't hurt us. Isn't it good God sprinkled some of that into the meeting? You get tense listening. How many of you know you need a release? And God so many times does that. He actually does. We get intense in some of the truth, and God breaks it. We get just a little release, and then we pick up again. That's the way it should be. So I want to give you these words. You see, he gets his portion, and it says here, where is it? Yes, in the 13th verse. Took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. Now, wasted. That is A-S-O-T-I-A. Asotia is a little Greek word. And it means spendthriftness. Spendthriftness. Extravagance. Extravagance, or investing or spending without a proper income from it. Do you see now? An investment without a proper income from it. Spendthriftiness, extravagance. Do you see anything wicked like wild women in that? No. He merely misused or abused the life. He misspent it. Spendthriftiness is a good substitute word in your Greek for it. It is that he has spent it, allowed it to be spent, without the proper returns that should come. How many can see that now? That's the meaning of your word, asotia. He wasted it. Extravaganza. Doesn't say he got even drunk. Doesn't. But it's a wastefulness, an extravagant expenditure of the thing without a proper comeback. How many know that's exactly what life is when it's lived that way? You can live it in the world with all the pleasing things, and how many know it is exactly that same thing? Because the life you have lived has not brought the glory to God, the answer to God, the comeback that it should. Life is only lived to the glory of God. Well, a life that is lived in any selfish pursuit, if it does not glorify God, how many know that's a lost thing? It has lost its purpose. It has lost its design. So it is spent in spendthriftiness, extravagance, with no comeback. A life is lost because it ceases to play in its function, the thing for which it was designed, the glory of God. Now listen, how do you know that when he speaks of all of us sinning, the whole race going into darkness, all have sinned and gone short of the glory of God? Do you get that or don't you? Now keep that right in there. All have sinned. How? How have all sinned? Because they have come short of functioning in the field where God wanted them. Man was made for the glory of God. Well, if he lives, I don't care how piously, even good in the sense of morality, if that life has not brought the glory of God, that's a lost thing. That's a lost thing. Its purpose has not been realized. All have sinned. How? Because they got drunk? No. All have sinned because we have lived without the life bringing back to God its glory. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. You remember the little diagram I made with our objective? Here was man coming along and looks up. Our objective is to glorify God. God's objective is to transform us into his image. Well, if I fail here to glorify God, how do you know that's sin? The sin is the fact that the life does not glorify God nor function in the field for which it was designed. Now for, the sake of theology and everything else, we have categories of sin. This kind of sin, that kind of sin, this kind of sin, sins and flesh sins, the whole thing can be summed up in that just one word. Man has sinned because he's come short of the glory of God. He doesn't function. So keep that word. Well, then that word riotous. Riotous. He left it in, and riotous living. That's komos. K-O-M-O-S. Now, that word is not the word that Jesus uses himself or the apostles use when he speaks of riotous living and drunkenness. There are two words. Now when you look at homos, put down Titus 1:6. 1 Peter 4:4.
Comos.
Didn't
Just Comos.
you have another word? Did you get
Asotia.
Comos? This is still Comos.
Yes, this is still Comos.
Okay.
This is still Comos. Let's look at Titus 1:6.
Titus 1:6.
Titus 1:6.
If any be
If
blameless,
any be blameless, the husband, one wife, having faithful children, not accused of riot or unruly. There's your word riot. That means a real riot with drunkenness and all of that. That's the word that covers the fact of riotous living, meaning drunkenness. Drunkenness. And it's translated riotous, drunkenness. Now turn to 1 Peter 4:4. Wherein they think it strange that ye run not with them to the same excess of riot, speaking evil of so. Now there's that same word, and that means real drunkenness. And that's the thing that he warns us about, but that isn't the word that he uses here. He doesn't say even it was in drunkenness. Well, somebody says, are you going to protect that wildcat? No, I'm not protecting him. I'm defending him from a lot of slander. How many know he was very wrong and he sinned? But it doesn't make it any better if he has stolen to say he stole and he swore and he killed and he murdered and lived in adultery. How many know that's all? No. You can't do that. You can't do that. Keep it in the realm where it is. He has wasted his life. It has not produced what he should in this riotous living. But this word riotous here is drunkenness and all of that. But that isn't the word he uses. He uses the word that means it's a wasted thing. Come short, wasted. So you don't have to defend this boy, but I do like to deal with him honestly. Isn't that fair? Deal with him honestly. Don't add to it to make it look more terrifying. Well, we won't take too much time now. I want to see something else. How many see a group of three in this word? Come back to the text. I have come to seek and to save that which was lost. Now, the word that covers as far as the wreckage of sin goes. Just as far as the wreckage of sin goes, the redemption of God pushes out over that. Now when he starts in with this idea of sheep. Now his next thing that's lost is a coin. Inanimate. The coin represents that. That's the earth, inanimate. Now you come to sheep. Now you have animation, but it still belongs on the earth level. When Jesus was crucified and the blood ran from his body, what was first touched by the blood? The earth. Because that was the first thing that was ever brought under judgment. And the blood of Jesus touched the earth, a type of its redemption. Why? Because that was the first thing that was marred and mutilated and brought under judgment through sin, the earth. And so here we can push this along, because in every department, wherever God has made in creation, wherever it's moved, will come under this category, and that's what he brings in under salvation. It isn't that he's saving a little group of people to take us to heaven. Redemption covers us, but it covers every item in the creative movings of God. The whole universe that's out of order will eventually be brought back again into order, that the stars will sing again to the glory of God in its rhythm, in its movement. The earth will yet rejoice. The conflict is over. The conflict is over. Redemption has brought this thing through. I like that. I like a big redemption. I like to think that the offering of Jesus Christ was so tremendous
that it must reach and cover far more than just my little sins and get me to heaven. It's going to push out until the whole earth is brought again under the redemption of his precious blood. All the old earth, the animals, they will be touched by it. In that millennial period, what will happen? The animals will function exactly as they were ordained to. A wild animal is not what God made. He never made a lot of wildcats running around the earth and wild beasts. He made beautiful creatures with a mission and function. And when sin comes in, well, of course, it distorts the whole thing. But I'm so glad that in that period, even his creation, inanimate, animated, and mankind, and he tells us that with these stories. These three, how many see the redemption moving in three realms? Yes. I believe that. How many of you believe it? Will you believe with me? I want you to. I want you to come in under the joy of it, the wonder of it. To me, it's magnificent, the redemption of my precious Lord. Dear Lord, we thank you for a little time again in thy presence and studying thy word, which is always fresh, means so much to us. We pray, Lord, that thou bless it to our hearts. Help us to carry away the portions of it that you want us to have. Build us up in thee and satisfy thy heart. Look upon us and be pleased in thee as it is reproduced in every heart. That thy heart finds satisfaction for thy redemption, for Jesus' sake. Amen. And God bless you.